What does it mean to love God with all your mind? Welcome to TV, Tennessee Valley Church. I'm Barry Howard, and I'm honored to be serving as the interim preacher at the First Baptist Church in Huntsville. So thank you for spending a few minutes of your day with us. There's a story in Luke chapter 10 where a legal expert stands up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Instead of handing him an answer, Jesus turns the question back on him. And the man answers Jesus with words that many of us have heard since we were children. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus tells him, "You have answered correctly. Do this and you will live." Heart, soul, strength, and mind. Eugene Peterson's paraphrase of that same verse in the Message puts a little extra punch here. Love the Lord your God with all your passion and prayer and muscle and intelligence. Intelligence. Jesus assumes that loving God involves your whole self, including the thinking part of you. That's what I want to talk about today, not just loving God with our hearts on Sunday morning or with our hands when we volunteer, but loving God with our minds, with how we think, how we study, what we dwell on, and how we process the world around us. It's easy to assume faith mainly lives in our feelings, in a certain kind of emotion we get during a worship song or a certain warmth we feel during prayer. And that's real, and it matters. But Jesus doesn't stop at heart and soul. He adds strength and mind, a whole love for the whole God from the whole person. As a child, I heard the older folks in our community use a phrase that seems to have gone by the wayside. "I have a mind to," they would say. They might say, "I have a mind to go to the grocery store," or "I have a mind to plant a few tomatoes," or maybe if it was a pretty summer day, they might say, "I have a mind to grab a cane pole and go fishing down at the creek." The phrase was an expression of an intention or a goal, and an acknowledgement that intention begins in the mind. Scientists used to say that the human brain holds about 100 billion neurons, but more recent research using a method that actually counts brain cells rather than estimating them has revised that number to roughly 86 billion neurons. Each one of those neurons can form thousands of connections, which adds up to something like 100 trillion connections total. And all of that is packed into an organ about the size of a small cauliflower, weighing about 3 pounds that you could hold in your two hands. That's an extraordinary gift. And I don't think God gave it to us so we could sit it on a shelf during the week and only dust it off on Sundays. So how do we actually fulfill this commandment? I want to suggest 4 practical ways we can love God with our minds. First, we love God with our minds by learning and applying what we learn. Proverbs chapter 4 says it this way: "Keep hold of instruction, do not let go. Guard her, for she is your life." Notice that wisdom isn't a hobby, it's not decoration. Solomon calls it your life. Wisdom was never meant to sit on a shelf, it was meant to be lived out. That starts with the basics: showing up, doing the work, pushing through the assignment you'd rather skip, chasing excellence in whatever you're learning, whether it's in the classroom, on a job site, or in a research center. But loving God with our minds goes beyond academics. It's honoring God with our intellect, yes, but also with our intuition and our imagination. I want to encourage something specific here: holistic learning. It matters that we know our Bibles, but it also matters that we understand something about science, about history, about literature, and about how the world actually works. You see, the God who set the stars in their courses is honored when someone studies astronomy. The God who calls us fearfully and wonderfully made is honored when someone studies medicine or nursing or psychology. There's no corner of honest learning that falls outside the reach of loving God. The late beloved Dallas Willard put it about as well as anyone ever has. He said the greatest issue facing Christians today is whether we will actually become disciples, students, apprentices, practitioners of Jesus Christ, steadily learning from Him how to live the life of the kingdom and bring it into every corner of our existence. Disciple simply means student. It means if you follow Jesus, you've already signed up to be a lifelong learner. Years ago, the philosopher, astronomer, and mathematician Galileo said, "I do not feel obliged to believe that the same God who has endowed us with sense and reason and intellect has intended us to forego their use." So loving God is so much more than believing the right things or saying the right words. We love God with the way we think, by asking good questions, by working through hard problems, by gleaning wisdom wherever it can be found. Second, we love God by focusing on what is good and virtuous. Paul writes in Philippians chapter 4, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think on these things. Notice, that's a command, not a gentle suggestion. And it matters because the alternative is always right there waiting for us. It's easy to let our minds drift toward things that are hurtful or destructive or self-centered or manipulative, especially with a screen in our hand feeding us whatever keeps us scrolling. Here's the truth. Our minds are never in neutral. They're always dwelling on something. The real question isn't whether you'll think about something, it's what you'll think about. Loving God with our minds means training them the same way you train a muscle, to focus on what's constructive and hopeful and life-giving. What you feed your mind today, you will become tomorrow. Well, third, we love God with our minds by letting our minds be transformed. Romans chapter 12 says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what the will of God is." Paul lays out only two options. We can let the world do the shaping, let the culture, the crowd, the algorithm set the terms for how we think, or we can let God do the shaping and be transformed. There's no third neutral option. Somebody's forming your mind every single day. The real question is who? I think when we sing, "You are the potter, I'm the clay," that has to also be true of our minds and not just our circumstances. And that means we don't change our minds just to fit in or to be popular or to avoid an uncomfortable conversation. We change our minds because the truth calls us to, even when it costs us something. A transformed mind isn't drifting with whatever's trending. It's honest, ongoing alignment with God's plan for life. We've looked at three ways so far: learning and applying what we learn, focusing on what is good, and letting our minds be transformed. When we come back, I'll be talking about a fourth way we love God with our minds, that is by actually taking on the mind of Christ. So stay with us.
Which mar the chosen one, bring many sons to glory. Behold the man upon a cross, my sin upon his shoulders. Ashamed, I hear my gifts, no power, no wisdom, but I will boast in Jesus Christ, his death and resurrection. Why should I gain from his reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart: his wounds have paid my ransom. But this I know with all my heart: his wounds have paid my ransom.
Oh, what a God-given talent. Thank you, Jackie, for sharing your vocal talents with us.
Of course.
Welcome to TV Church. People who watch TV Church have seen you before, performing, singing songs for us, hymns of praise. Today, Barry is talking about loving God with all of our heart, soul, strength, and mind. So we thought a teacher would be a wonderful interview. First of all, how do you love God with your mind?
I'm very blessed to have been raised in a household where it was just the water we were swimming in. Everything was oriented in that direction, and so my parents really valued, of course, education. My mom being a teacher, my dad being a pastor. So pushing us in that direction while always keeping an eye. My dad always said, "Remember who you are and whose you are," and that plays like a mantra in my head, especially as a teacher. And it's like, I know who I am, but like more importantly, I know whose I am. And in teaching to instill that in my students as well, that like more than anything, what undergirds them is knowing who they belong to.
And you're a teacher at Westminster Christian
Yes.
Academy. With social media telling kids one thing, how do you help them focus on what is true, what is godly?
Teaching English, the thing that I start the year, we just had the start of the school year. And so what I like to start with my students is understanding that in everything they will do in their life, it's not going to be writing essays, it's not going to be reading novels from the 1950s. Though we do those things, they're going to come to new experiences and they're going to have to make an assessment of those experiences. They're going to have to make an assessment and judge what they're going to keep, what they're going to discard, what they're going to agree with, and what they're going to disagree with. And they do that by collecting evidence. They judge that evidence by previous experience, by knowledge of truth, and then they come to their conclusion. That is how they analyze it. And they're going to do that in everything in life. And we use the novels and we use everything we read and experience as the tools to practice that skill. And especially not just with social media, but artificial intelligence, it is going to be the space that is just normal for them, and you can't hide them away from it, but you can train them to look at things critically, to encourage them to look at things critically, to assess it by what they know to be true.
Jackie, now you have a 1-year-old and almost 4-year-old. How do you keep those young minds focused on Jesus?
3-4-year-old girls apparently ask about 400 questions a day.
Keeps you busy, yeah.
Yes, and she's at an age now where we can really talk about is how you're treating your friend, is how you're treating your sister, how you're treating mom and dad, how you're treating yourself, how you're talking about yourself. Is that something that's going to make God happy? Is that, because she has a little bit more awareness of that barometer of how she can personally look at what she's doing, she can reflect on what she's doing. Is that making God happy? Is this something that's going to continue to make God happy? And the language obviously gets more advanced as she gets older. And of course we talked to the 1-year-old about this too, but she understands fewer words. But especially with my almost 4-year-old, it's been such a blessing to see her imagination blossom, but also to feel that responsibility of how can she use this brain that God gave her, this very unique and fascinating and curious brain, to ask questions that lead her in the right direction.
We're all students for life.
I tell my students every year, it's like, I come to these texts with I'm slightly different, slightly newer, older, wiser version of myself. But a student will point something out that I've never seen because they have life experiences that I didn't have. They are growing up in a different age. They have a different family makeup, or they've been somewhere, or just something God has revealed to them. And if you deprive your classmates of your thoughts and your questions, then that's something that can never be replicated by anybody else in this class. So please bring your thoughts, bring your questions, your disagreements. Please disagree. Disagreement is such a powerful tool for molding your mind, because whether you're able to come to agreement or you have to sit in the discomfort of disagreement and understand that you both see something a little differently or understand it differently, that's such an enriching thing, especially for young adults who don't always feel very comfortable with disagreement, except with their parents. So I was like, please bring your mind, the mind that God gave you, and use it. And bring it here, because that's part of this class.
And that's great advice for all ages.
Yes.
Thank you so much, and blessings for the school year.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back. Today we're talking about what it means to love God with all your mind. So far we've talked about learning and applying what we learn, focusing on what is good and virtuous, and letting our minds be transformed rather than conform to the world around us. Now, fourth and finally, we love God with our minds by adopting the mind of Christ. Paul writes in Philippians chapter 2, "Let the same mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus our Lord." Here's the truth. We cannot live the way Jesus lived without learning at some point to think the way Jesus thought. A non-thinking Christian, frankly, is a contradiction in terms. That means we think about the person in need the same way Jesus thought about the person in need. We think about the outsider, the refugee, the person who doesn't fit in, the same way Jesus thought about them. We think about the prodigal, the son or daughter who's wandered, the same way Jesus thought about the prodigal, with the Father's eyes scanning the horizon, not a judge's gavel raised. It means we think about our politics, our finances, our relationships, and our purpose in life with a mind that has been shaped by Christ, rather than a mind that's simply been shaped by the news cycle or by whatever's trending on our phones. Having the mind of Christ means being an engaged thinker. Never let someone else do your thinking for you. And never, under any circumstances, park your brain at the door, not at school, not at home, not in the marketplace, not at church, and not in your interaction with popular culture. Adopting the mind of Christ isn't a one-time decision you make and just move on. It's the daily, ongoing work of letting His priorities become our priorities, His compassion become our compassion, His way of life become our way of life. Let's bring this all together. We honor God and we embrace the gift of life He's given us when we learn to love Him with our minds, by applying what we learn, by choosing carefully what we dwell on, by letting our minds be transformed rather than conformed, and by taking on the mind of Christ. Remember that old expression, "I have a mind to"? Folks in my home area would say, "I had a mind to bake a pound cake. I had a mind to cook a pot of soup. I had a mind to clean out the barn." It was just a homespun way of saying, "I've made up my mind. I intend to do this." I want you to borrow that phrase this week for something even bigger. What if we said, "I have a mind to honor God with my thoughts, with my learning, with what I dwell on, with what I let shape me"? So where do we begin? The same place every disciple has always begun, by studying and practicing the teachings of Jesus. Christianity was never meant to be a checklist of beliefs we sign our name to and then move on from. A Christian is someone who's committed to learning and living the way Jesus lived, with heart, soul, mind, and strength. Maybe today you're realizing your mind's been running on autopilot for a while, shaped more by your social media feed than by your faith. And you're ready to deepen your faith, expand your horizons, and live life to the maximum. One effective way to advance your spiritual growth is by learning to love God with your mind. And here's the good news. God has gifted you with 86 billion neurons who are just waiting to help out.
Narrow as the road may seem, I'll follow where your spirit leads. Broken as my life may be, I will give you every piece. I hear you call, I am available. I say, yes, Lord, I am available. Here I am with open hands, counting on your grace again. Less of me and more of you. Oh, I just wanna see you move. I hear you call, I am available. I say, yes, Lord, I am available. I hear you call, I am available. I say, yes, Lord, I am available. Oh, yes, I am. Here I am, here I am. You can have it all, you can have it all. Here I am, here I am. You can have it all, you can have it all. Here I am, here I am. You can have it all, you can have it all. Here I am, here I am. You can have it all, you can have it all. For the one who gave me life, nothing is a sacrifice. Use me how you want to, God. Have your throne within my heart. Oh, I hear you call, I am available. I say, yes, Lord, I am available. I Yes, I know you call me as I am. Oh, you call me as I am. And Lord, you use me as I am. Oh, yes, I hear you call. I hear you call. Use me, Lord. Lord, you can use anything. So you can use me as I am.
Hello, and thanks for joining us. I'm Tim Boone, Minister of Missions at First Baptist Huntsville. To be a follower of Jesus means that you're on mission. God calls all of us to join our hearts with God's heart for the world. I hope that you'll join us as we seek to be the church in the heart of the city, with a heart for the region and for the world. You can visit the missions page on our website to find different ways to serve right where you are, or you can join us as we travel outside of our city and throughout our world. You can also email me at tim@fbchsv.org. I'd love to hear from you.